The new year is upon us and I have a list of books I am absolutely determined by force or by fire to read this year because I've been putting them off for so long and nothing in the world is going to stop me from reading them. Except like death, I guess. I don't know. I've been wanting to read some of these books for so long and I just keep putting them off. I get lazy or I get into a reading slump, etc, etc, etc. And I'm so disappointed in myself because I know I thoroughly will enjoy them. So making this video is my call for accountability. So when I'm halfway through the year, if I still haven't read these books, I give you full right to start sending me hate on all of my social medias. Bookish with B on TikTok, Bookish with B _ on Instagram, Selena's Talking on YouTube. Let us begin! The first book is Notes of a Native Son by James Baldwin. I am someone who consistently says that I became a fan of James Baldwin because of his non-fiction works. So tell me now why I haven't read his very first collection of non-fiction. His very first collection of essays. Is that not embarrassing? Something about me. I'm a fan of James Baldwin, right? Because I discovered... Did you just hear that? That is... I don't know. Maybe you didn't hear it. My brother just sneezed in the loudest possible way I have ever heard a human being sneeze in my life. Like, talk about Arab men and dramatics. My God. But I discovered James Baldwin a long time ago when I stumbled across a sort of a YouTube video of a lecture he was giving to a bunch of students a long time ago. And the lecture was transcribed and I downloaded it and I read it. And it's called The Artist's Struggle for Integrity. And everything about this essay and this lecture, whatever you want to call it, resonated so deeply with me that before I'd read any of his other books, I knew this man would be my favorite author purely because of what he sees art as, how he perceives art, how he perceives the role of an artist. And I got it tattooed onto my arm here. That's how much it meant to me. And I kept saying, yeah, I'm a fan of James Baldwin. I've only read his non-fiction works, blah, 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 before I'd read any of his fiction. But I'd only read like 2 pieces of his non-fiction works. I just loved him so much. Notes of a Native Son is, I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it? It doesn't matter. I'm probably going to put it up on the screen. Notes of a Native Son is his first collection of essays. It explores life in Harlem. It explores the protest novel. It explores African Americans abroad. If you know anything about James Baldwin, it explores everything that he believes in. It explores everything that he stands for as an author, as a person, as a political activist. And I actually went to a Notes of a Native Son panel discussion honoring his 100th birthday, and the way that they spoke about it and they did readings of it, and I was like, my goodness, why have I not read this? Why have I not read these collections? And I keep putting it off because I want to be in a certain mental state. I want to be in a certain mind state. Like the downfalls of being a mood reader. Well, I don't care about your mood, girl. I don't give up. You're going to read this book. So I'm going to read it. And this is, once again, me holding myself accountable. Next on the list is a chunky book that I know I'm going to love. Has been recommended to me countless times by people whose recommendations I trust with my life, who are very much in a line right now waiting to beat me up because I have not read it yet, even though every book they've ever recommended me, I have listened to and I have enjoyed. And it is The Sword of Kaigan. I'm so excited to read this book. I'm so excited to read this book. The way that it's described is something I know is right up my alley. And the reason that I haven't read it is because every single person that started recommending this to me recommended it to me while I was still in my year-long fantasy slump. And then I bought it anyway when I started getting back into fantasy. But they kept saying to me, Celine, until you're fully, really back immersed in the fantasy world, don't read it because you're going to get you're going to DNF it. You're going to get a reading slump because it's so much. It's so much to absorb. It's so much to understand. You really need to be paying attention. And I was like, well, now you've scared me and now I don't want to read it. But now I want to read it. I've put the full synopsis up on the screen so you can pause and read it if you would like to, but a quick summary of what I've understood from it is a small kingdom, a small spit of ice called the Sword of Kaigan resides on itself because of the supernatural powers that won them a battle or some sort of war in the history. And there is one young child who has been wanting to hone his powers as much as he can, and then when he hears about an invasion looming, he realizes he may not have the time to practice and train, and he kind of just has to jump right into the stick of it. And it's about a woman who married into this family who is about to be invaded, and they're in the face of an invasion, a possible war, a potential war, who realizes she put her youth to the side to marry into this family, and she will do everything that she can to make sure that they stay safe, to make sure she fights to take care of her children, her husband, her family, her kingdom. And it's just from the full synopsis and from everything anyone has ever said when giving a book review, it is just so up my alley fantasy wise, and I'm so excited to get back into it, and I'm determined to make sure I'm in the right mindset to enjoy every single second of this book. Next is very similar thing. I bought it a long time ago. I bought it when I was still in a very long fantasy slump, and I bought it because every single thing that anyone said about it sounded like it would be just up my alley for fantasy. And I'm going to read this before I read The Sword of Kaigan because I think reading this will really get me into the mindset for fantasy. fantasy and really get me prepped and ready for a book like The Sword of Kaigan, and that is The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. It's a young adult high fantasy. It's about a young princess who's been imprisoned by her brother, and a drudge, a maid, a handmaiden, etc., who tends to her and comes to her as an anonymous, faceless, nameless person who doesn't really matter to the princess until she one day discovers the true capacity and the true meaning and the true ability of the princess, and they sort of form some form of an alliance with the princess on a vengeful mission to take down her brother for what he did to her, and the young priestess trying to find and save her family and be reunited with them. And it's sapphic, I love me some sapphic fantasy, and I've heard really incredible things. I've heard incredible things about the author, I've heard incredible things about the book itself, and I'm really genuinely so excited for it. And if you haven't read it yourself, I'm going to tell you to read it even though I haven't read it yet, because that's how certain I am that I'm going to enjoy this book. I have a confession to make. When I held up a pile of 5 books, these 2 books aren't actually part of those books because those books haven't been released yet! I'm so excited. So, the first book is something... If I cannot get my hands on a paperback arc of that book and I have to wait until publication day, or worse yet, hardback, I think I will actually cry so hard I'll choke on my own tears. Because first of all, I hate hardbacks, okay? I hate them. They're heavy, they're inconvenient, you can't crack the spines, you can't fold it back while you're reading. I never feel like I can annotate it because it's a hardback and it's special and it's more expensive. And also, you guys are here, you've seen what my room looks like. It's just a pile of books. I don't have a bookcase. There's nowhere for a hardback to go. It doesn't fit size-wise. It's inconvenient. So I'm going to do every single thing in my power to reach out to that team and ask for a paperback arc. And if I don't get it, I don't want to think about the woman that I will become. The book is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. If you guys don't know this about me, okay? The Hunger Games was my first ever hyperfixation. Not my first book hyperfixation, my first ever hyperfixation. I'm neurotypical, right? I don't hyperfixate on things a lot. And even when I do, it's very temporary. The Hunger Games was a multiple year-long hyperfixation. And it was... I want you to think back to the most insufferable teenage girl you knew when you were at school, and I want you to double that insufferability, and that was me when it came to the Hunger Games. I would be walking down the corridor at school, down the halls, and I would hear someone in a completely different grade, like older than me or younger than me, just mention the Hunger Games, and I would stop dead in my tracks. I really am not exaggerating when I say this. I would stop dead in my tracks to hear what it is that they have to say. And if it wasn't positive, I would slowly swivel in, like, from where I'm standing and go, what did I just hear you say? And I would stop them there and basically try and change their mind. It got so bad that people in my class would intentionally mention the Hunger Games just to see how I would react. One boy, and I remember this so clearly, I'm not going to say his name, but he would intentionally go, oh yeah, the Hunger Games is crap. And I would literally go, what did you just say to me? Like when we would have tech, like for my American viewers, we have classes called tech. I don't know what you guys call them. I don't know, woodwork. I don't know what you guys call it, but it's basically, honing your other abilities, building things, welding things, electronics, tech, whatever. And we had this one class where we were building bookends, learning how to saw wood, etc. Mine was the Hunger Games. It was like that. I'm so serious. I would have permanent marker on my arms of the Mockingjay every day. It was really bad. It was really bad. And so when Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes came out last year and I read it, had the best time of my life. Not last year, the year before. Had the time of my life. And now this is coming out. Suzanne, I'm not even going to reach out to the team. I'm going to reach out to Suzanne personally. Suzanne, if you don't send me that manuscript right now, I will camp out on your front yard. You send me that manuscript right now. But in essence, it's being advertised as Haymitch's Games, the 50th Hunger Games, which is when Haymitch won. But I think that this is false advertising. I don't actually think the story is going to be Haymitch's POV. I think it's going to be his games and his story, but I don't think it's going to be told from his perspective. And that just kind of makes it all the more exciting because I don't know what's going to happen. And I feel that so I don't know if you noticed, I kind of cut myself off halfway through a sentence there while editing. That wasn't a mistake. I went on a 10-minute tangent about how badly I needed this book and how excited I was for it and how interesting it would be if it actually had nothing to do with Haymitch and it was just advertised that way. And I realized how bad it was that even before I got to the editing process, I cut myself off. So I'm sorry for that. I got carried away. I'm very ashamed. Next on the list is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. Now, hold on a second. Now, let me tell you something. I go feral for Emily Henry, okay? Some people tend to call me a cynic when it comes to love, romance, especially fictional, especially straight fictional, because I just kind of look at it, I read it, I'm just men don't do that, do they? They just, it's very clearly men written by women. You know what I mean? I am cynic when it comes to this stuff, but there's some form of drug, right? There's some form of drug that Emily puts in her books that as I read them and post-reading them, I'm like, this could happen to me. And I think I discussed this in like a short TikTok I posted on my page a while ago, like in September now, where I said I think that the thing about Emily Henry's books that makes me feel this way, and the thing that's so magnetic about it, is the fact that her characters and her stories always feel real. Even if it's not a realistic situation, the characters themselves feel real, which makes it to me more realistic and makes it to me feel like this could happen to me, you know what I mean? And so Great Big Beautiful Life, I'm going to read you like the one sentence blurb, which: two writers compete for the chance to tell the larger-than-life story of an heiress with more than a few plot twists up her sleeve in this dazzling and sweeping new novel from Emily Henry. And it's basically about two writers. They get invited to this woman's house to tell her story, basically, but she gives each of them different parts of her life, and they can't piece them together to come up with a full story and give this salacious, scandalous, breakthrough story about this family, because she's made them both sign an NDA. So they aren't allowed to tell each other anything that they hear from her and what she tells them to, but they both think that this is going to be their big break in literature and big break in being, the standout authors. And they're also like, the tension between them is crazy. And it's just, one thing about me, I don't believe in enemies to lovers in romance, unless it's fantasy, dystopia, sci-fi, etc., because that's not what an enemy is. But I do believe in rivals to lovers. I'm like shy just thinking about it. Rivals or competitors to lovers. And we got a taste of that. We got a taste of that in Beach Read. We got something similar to that in Beach Read. And what did we say about Beach Read? Beach Read is up there with one of the best romance books I've ever read. I'm so excited. I'm so beyond unbelievably excited for these books. Anyway, that is my 5 for 25 books I have to read by force or by fire in 2025. I'm so excited. I do have like a list of another 5 books that I really want to read. One of which is Babel by R.F. Kuang, because I know for a fact those books, like that book is just, every quote I've seen of that book is just incredible, and everything I know about that book is incredible. I also want to finish the Poppy War series, because I stopped it after the first book because that shit fucked me up so bad, and I was like, I don't think I could possibly finish this series, but I'm going to reread the first one and finish the series. And there's another book, I can't remember which one it is, but I didn't mention them in this book because I like the ring of 5 for 25. I like the way it sounds, and I didn't want to do 25 for 25 because I can't think of 25 books I want to read, and that's way too big of a commitment. So I'm just saying 5. We can stick Babel in there, actually. We can do 6. But the title's still going to be 5 for 25. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.